Hello everyone, I'm Sarah and welcome back to my channel. Last month I introduced to you all my project creation folder, aka my Everything series Bible, which is hopefully going to be my one-stop for everything I need in regards to brainstorming, outlining, prepping, writing and revising all of my projects. It was supposed to be just a series Bible for my new project, Project Grey. My ADHD took it a little bit too far. A little bit too far. I'll link the video where I go through everything I've got in here down below if you are interested. I was super excited to start doing all of this work and then promptly didn't do anything with it for the past month. I got busy, I got a little bit burned out and then realised a little bit too late that I had planned to do all of this during the kids' summer holidays, which makes it even more difficult for me to film because they are constantly here. So, number one, if you hear any children, no, you did not. Number two, the lighting is going to be all over the place in this video because that curtain is open, those curtains are open, and the sun is just in and out constantly. But I can't do much about that, so it is what it is. The main point of today is for me to go through with you while I complete some of the world building that I have for Project Grey. The good part about this is that the world that this story is set in has technically already been created. It is a recycled world from an old project, a world that I absolutely love dearly, and I'm really happy that I managed to create a new story to go with this world because I wasn't too much fond of the old one. The bad part is that means there's a lot of world building to do. The story takes place in a country called Isidona, and within the country of Isidona there are 6 queendoms. So not only will I need to world build for the country as a whole, I will also need to world build for all of the individual queendoms as well. So a lot of work that needs to go into it, which now that I'm saying it out loud, I'm not actually looking forward to doing it all. So why world building? Why is it important? Especially with fantasy, if you are setting it in an alternative reality or you are doing high fantasy, so you are creating your very own world. It's basically for the immersive experience. Just like you want your characters to be believable characters with their personalities, their wants, their needs, their goals, their desires, you want the world to be believable as well. It helps the readers bring to life everything that you have imagined and everything that you have created. I think it's a little different with fantasies that are set in our own world, like urban fantasies, where it's modern day and fantastical stuff happens. There's a slight amount of world building to be done in regards to the fantastical side, but with the modern day, everything is sort of already believable. The readers aren't really going to have any questions about how the world works because we sort of already know how our own world works. If you are creating your very own world, you want to avoid the readers having too many questions about how this works, why that is, because too many questions in regards to the setting is going to sort of start pulling the readers out of the story, which is something you want to try and avoid. Now, I'm not claiming to be an expert on world building, I'm just sharing what I have learned in the past and what I currently know.
I warn you, no one mess with me or you get it.
Okay. So there are 2 ways that I know of that you can world build. You can world build from the inside out and you can world build from the outside in. World building from the inside out is starting with your character and their setting and then creating the immediate setting, their starting point, and then building outwards from that character and from their setting until you get to the creation of the entire world around you. Or you can start from the outside in, which is creating the entire world around you and then working inwards, backwards until we get to the setting of your character. Whichever way you start depends entirely on the type of story that you are trying to tell. When I started creating this world I'm currently working on, I started from the outside with the intention of going in because of the type of plot that the original story was going to be. They were going to be travelling across this country through all these queendoms. So I felt it very important for me to have the entirety of that landmass created in some semblance of detail so I could help plot where they were going to go. And then I don't think I actually ever went that far in because I distinctly remember just randomly making up stuff as I went and places that they visited. I did the outside and I never did the inside. Now that I'm reworking on it again, I'm starting from the outside to get all of those main big important things done, and then I'm going to be, depending on the plot, as I plot, working more inwards and focusing on specific places and settings that my characters will go to. And I'm trying to involve more of the history and politics between, you know, the lords and ladies of the separate queendoms, between the queendoms themselves, into the whole entire plot. So I will need sort of all of those specific details for each of those different queendoms and each of those different settings, which is why everything is sort of so detailed at the moment. But I'm of the firm belief that you don't need to go all the way in depth with your world building. You don't really need your world to sort of be imagined or created or have all of this information written down about every single little thing, especially if your readers are not ever going to experience 90% of those things, where 90% of those things are not relevant to the plot, to the characters, or are just going to be 1 or 2 sentences in regards to an explanation. How in-depth you world build is 100% completely up to you. I've been known to world build as I go. So I will start with the setting of my character and I will literally just world build around their journey. I will world build only around the specific places that they travel, and everything else is literally just...
What are you trying to fight me?
Okay.
I'm trying to fight me first.
And everything else is literally just
No,
blank,
no,
nothing, because it's not important to my characters and it's not important to the plot. World building adds depth, it adds richness, it adds context, and if you're really lucky or unlucky, it will spur plot points, which is This is the world building that I'm going to be doing, or at least this is a system for the world building that I'm going to be focusing on. In a nutshell, it has split everything that I'll need for world building into 3 distinct levels. And my mood, my energy levels, my inspiration, my motivation will help determine which of these levels I work towards at any given point. So we have the most basic in red. This is the minimum that I will need in order to world build. And then we'll get to the middle level, which contains even more detail, which is I'm feeling a little bit better, we can add a little bit more detail. If I'm feeling absolutely fantastic, brilliant, want to get everything done, we can then add the green. If I end up with any one queendom just doing the red, that's as much as I can do. That is all I am feeling. That is all I need. It caters to my ADHD because I'm not forcing myself to do everything on this page for the most in-depth I could possibly do, which means I'm not overwhelming myself. And it means I'm more focused and paying attention to how I'm physically and mentally feeling and not pushing myself to do too much. And it's lovely and organized for my autism, which is fantastic. So that is basically what I'm going to be following today, the minimums, and depending on how I feel for each different queendom, I might do a different one. It depends on what we do. So the main focus of world building that I want to do with each of the individual queendoms, and this is mostly what any sort of world building would look like when I do full world building. And we're going to go straight to this little thing here. Because I know this is going to be a lot of work, I'm like, oh, I'm dreading the work. We're going to start with the good, the red. We're going to focus on the country name, which I have, so I don't need to worry about that. We're going to focus on the architecture, the weather, the law and order, and the government first. And I need some basic details for all of those. And then we'll see how I feel, and if I want to include anything from the orange, we'll see. This is proving a lot more difficult than I thought it was, being bothered wise. So I'm going to take a break to eat, which I feel like I might regret, but also I haven't actually eaten anything today, so maybe it might also help. I'll let you know.
And then finally to go upstairs. Just finishing it. We have a tea
I forgot how much creation and inspiration goes into creating your very own world. I do not remember it being this difficult back when I first started doing all of the basic components of this world that I'm currently working on. I feel like I got through everything that I've already done quite quickly, and now I'm sort of just stuck now that I'm trying to add even more detail to it. The more detail I try and put into it, it's like, oh, so I've got to think of this, and then I've got to think of this, and then I've got to think of this. And I don't want to make it too different, because it is all in the same country, so they would all sort of have similar education systems like that, but also they can't all be exactly the same, because aesthetically and culturally all of these queendoms are actually quite different. So that is really difficult to sort of balance. They are the same country in essence, or they are the same landmass with the same sort of main leader, sort of same main set of rules, government, politics, law, but also they are their own thing. So it's trying to just put those together really is the difficult part. I also sort of need to get over the voice in my head, which is the ADHD part of my brain, right? Which is telling me, are you really going to need this piece of information in the book? Because if you're not going to need it in the book, do you really need to come up with it? Can we not just move on and do something else? In which, fair enough, I might not need it for the book, but it is something that might come up. It is something that I might mention. It is something that might become a part of someone's history, or something that I could work in to affect the plot in some way. And obviously I'm not going to know that until I start outlining. So it's very much I need to do this. Let's get started with this. My autism is like, yeah, this is fantastic. I love it. I love all this information. My ADHD is like, I think that's enough information. We don't need to go too in depth with it, right? It all just needs to be super basic. And I'm more inclined to listen to my ADHD side, which is really bad. Because let's be honest, as much detail as I have in my project creation everything series Bible, the amount of detail I'm putting into all of these different pieces of information is actually very basic, which I don't think is a bad thing, as long as I have the basics there to guide me while I write. I can deepen that if I need to, if the book calls for it while I'm writing, because that will give me a little bit of freedom in that respect. So do I need to know every single celebration or holiday that all of these queendoms celebrate? No, I don't really. Do I need to sort of know the basics in case, you know, plot inspires something or something is mentioned? Yeah, probably. And if it so happens that they come across one of these festivals as they're traveling around, I can add more detail as I write. It just depends. Okay, so we are here on a new day. We have filled in all of the good information that we have for the world building on my little chart. Everything is very basic, like I said, because those aren't things I focus massively on, but it is things I will perhaps reference or will sort of affect the plot or will have affected in the past the characters in a certain way, so I feel it's important to know. Now we are going to be moving on to the beta, or the orange, which is county names, family life, visible geography, so things that the characters are going to be seeing as they go on their journey. The seasons, politics, and surface culture. So surface culture for me are things like celebrations and holidays, music, food, language, and fashion, things that the characters can see and experience. I don't have a lot of space in this, but again, I don't need massive amounts of detail. It would be really nice to put in a couple of celebrations and holidays that each of the different queendoms do. That is something definitely that we can reference. Music is going to be a little bit of a difficult one, because it's like, what type of music do they have in all of these? Do I want to go as far as to create my own instruments? Just like, do I want to go as far as to create my own animals and my own flora? Like, no, I'm not going that far. I'm not going to go that in depth with world building. They will have our flowers and our animals and probably our music as well, because I'm not that creative. It's like, okay, so what type of instruments, what type of music are they going to do? Which is a little bit of research, but okay, that's fine. Food, again, the type of food that they have, we're going to be eating in a lot of these places, so I will need obviously some sort of difference culturally between what they eat in one queendom to what they eat in another queendom. And fashion, obviously fashion is a big one. You can see fashion, you can sort of get a really good idea of culture a lot of the time looking at someone's fashion. And does fashion change depending on what part of the country they happen to be in, like it does in every other country, depending on the weather, depending on the history of that certain place, the founders of it, etc, etc. So that is what we're going to be working on now, and I'm also going to start working on the history of all of these countries, which is fine for one of them. I have the history for that one. I don't have any history for any of the others, but good history. So my red would be 1 year history, and then working on better would be a 5-year history. And a lot of this probably isn't going to be important to the plot itself, but it would possibly be important in regards to the politics between all of the queendoms, the relationship between all of the queendoms, and it could be something I could work into the plots or backstories depending on what those happen to be. So that is what we are going to be working on next. Love being utmost basic, I really do. So we have finished filling out for all of these 3 general ideas of both the good and better sections of the world building. I said I didn't remember what systems were. I think it includes stuff, and I'm only going to say one example because that's the only example I can think of at the moment, like the education system. That's what is their education system, and other such systems, I guess, would be included in systems. I don't know why I just didn't put education, but there we go. We have, again, it's very basic and based on what I think I'm going to need for the plot, so I'm not going to go massively outside and plan absolutely everything because my brain will not let me do that. But we have some good starting detail to get me started. In regards to things like geography, I have a very basic what the general geography is going to be like, and then I'll add more geography depending on where we travel to, if it's going to be any different than general, which is absolutely fine. I've written seasons here, which I realise now shouldn't be seasons because I have seasons included in Isidone itself. So really for this specific project, that should have been weather. And I realised that after I wrote the weather that they typically get in geography, and then I was like, I could have just written it in seasons. So that's probably then going to stay blank because I have the information already. But for next time working on this project, like it goes in a specific place, which is absolutely fine. And then things like science and technology and resources is a best, which isn't something massively I'm going to need, but it's even worse there. Geography, how much geography can I put down for a place that is basically lots of rivers and lots of hills? Again, I will need to include sort of like landmarks that they see, or landmarks which are important, but they're probably going to be more plot specific. So when I start doing the actual outline of the story, I can include more details in the spaces as I go, which again is what this is for. If I am being creative and if I do come up with other stuff, I have the space to add it if I come up with it on the fly in the either outlining process or in the writing process as I go, so I can keep track of it all, so I can have the continuity and have things make sense, because that's a really, really big issue with me. We are not going to go into best today. I don't have the bandwidth to do best. I will quickly go through what I would have in best in regards to world building. And I suppose the thing is with this, it's not even how I'm feeling physically, mentally, and creatively and motivationally. It helps me decide whether or not I actually need these specific things to be decided upon at all whatsoever. If I wanted to go that in depth, I have the option to, but it also sort of splits it up into things I know I'm definitely going to need and things that I probably don't need but can work on if I so choose. So it just helps me prioritize what to work on for world building and what I don't need to but can work on for world building. So I'm not forcing myself to do absolutely everything and then get bored of the story. I'm working on what I know I need to do, and then I have the option to do the rest. So for best, which encapsulates everything that I would ever want to know about world building, we have things like town and village names, which I probably will include in a lot of places. Again, that's going to be very plot specific. More about the religion, which religion is actually quite plot specific, so I'm going to have to do that. The education, the hidden geography, so not just the geography, the landmarks, the way things are built, how the people are, for what we can see, but for everything that we can't see as well. Conflicts between characters, well, not between characters, conflicts between the different queendoms, the higher ups of the different queendoms, between other countries. Again, something I'm going to have to work on. The science and technology, a little bit. I'm going to have to sort out something, but it's not overly important. Their resources, again, what they grow, what they import, export. And then beneath the surface culture. So beneath the surface culture are, for me, the idea of beauty, their manners, body language and communication, their attitude towards the elderly, children and strangers, approaches to marriage, to relationships, and their approaches to raising children. Again, not overly important to the plot, but it is definitely something for me to think about, because it is something that I can include as a throwaway line, as something a character sees and sort of has an opinion on or comments on. So that will tell us a bit more about the character themselves as we go. And again, I don't need to go massively in depth with all of this. I can just have very basics in regards to all of the detail, and then all of those basics, because I have them written out, because I have them here and I know what they are, it's very easy for me to then, if I need to for the plot, or if I feel like it, expand and add more detail to all of those elements if it is required, which is super helpful. I think doing it this way is definitely going to take a lot of the pressure off that I will inevitably give myself into world building properly. I don't have to do it all. I don't have to do it all in massive detail. Breaking it down like this helps me understand that, and will hopefully keep me more engaged, keep me more focused, keep me prioritizing the things I need to prioritize without getting overwhelmed with the amount of things I have to think of, come up with, create and put into the world, because I have also been known to do that. My brain constantly wants to take it a bit too far. Everything I do has to be perfect before I start. if I'm world building, I have to world build. But mentally, physically, I can't do that world building. So then I'm like, oh no, I can't do it. I suck. This way, I can do it. And I can do it step by step. And I can pick and choose. And yeah, it just makes it all a little bit easier. I'm happy with the basicness of it. I'm happy with the amount of information I have to start, and I'm happy with the amount of information I can still add creatively while I outline and while I write. I've not world built enough for it to restrict me and restrict my creativity, which I think is only going to help me in the future. While I'm writing the project, I will need to remember to write things down in there if it is not already written in there. But that's a whole other issue I'm months away from facing. That is everything from me today. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed watching me use what I have created to create something else. I'm really excited for what is going to come next, which is creating the map of the world, and I'm going to have so much fun showing you guys how I'm going to do that. Let me know in the comments if and how you do your own world building, and I will see you in my next video. Bye guys.